lifestyle, child of God. Greetings to the family out there. Greetings to all the supporters, and thanks for your support. I thank you for your likes, and I thank you for your views, and I thank you for all those who subscribed. I'm grateful for the support on the channel. Charlie Kirk, excuse me. I don't know anything about Charlie Kirk. I've been researching him for the last couple of days and checking out everything people have to say online about him. And he's an interesting gentleman. I mean, he's a man who has an opinion, like most people have opinions. It seems to me that people are doing a lot of idol worship when it comes to Charlie Kirk. They made him an idol. They made him a martyr. They're trying to make him a Jesus, if you will. He's been immortalized by his death. And it's very troubling that we could allow this type of worship to happen, right? But he was a great debater. He was a great debater. Now people say, from me watching, that people say that Charlie Kirk, that he wouldn't debate anybody that was equal to him, right? He was debating college students and things of that nature. But my thing is, I feel like he was debating the future, right? He was talking to people who are the future of America, who will be taking over the reins. And, they may say that he didn't want to debate other people, but I don't think other people really would have given him the platform to debate, right? So he took it through college campuses. And as you know, when you bring things to college campuses, you tend to gain an audience faster, especially when you're sparking political views, right? Political views or people's gender orientations or people's religious views. You're sparking interesting conversation, but you're also making people upset. He was making people upset, apparently, by the debate that he was having with them. Some of the stuff I like what he was saying, you know what I mean? Some, probably about 20% or less. But he was a man. I mean, he was just a man who had an opinion and was a great debater. I don't have anything against Charlie Kirk. I didn't know about him until his passing. And I think that, anytime somebody passes, we need to respect that. And we need to understand that if anybody passed in our family, that we would want people to respect that. So I think at least thing that we could do is respect the passing of the gentleman. But, I don't have anything bad or negative to say about him. I just think that people are worshiping him. And that's where we're going wrong with it, right? We're going wrong with the worship of Charlie Kirk. And it's making headline news. You know how YouTube is and the algorithm is. Whatever's fresh and hot topic, people are going to talk about. They're going to talk about and give their 2 cents, right? And I really waited a while to kind of just see what everybody had to say about it. But my personal view of it is that Charlie Kirk was not only assassinated, but Charlie Kirk was sacrificed. And as the elders told me, that in my circle and group, um, the elders said that, maybe Charlie Kirk was involved with some people that he didn't really know how deep um, they were into their belief system, right? There's groups and organizations, as we know, whether you want to call them secret societies or you want to call them whatever you want to call them. These groups, they get deep, what I mean, in their beliefs. And Charlie Kirk must have been, I believe, involved in things that he didn't know how deep it was, right? Um, but you got to be careful, who is around you or who's watching you. As we found out today, the text messages from the assassinator. Um, yeah, rest in peace to the man. And that's what I'm saying. Rest in peace to Charlie Kirk, because the most you can do is just have respect for somebody passing away. You feel what I'm saying? That's the most you can do. All this stuff, people are gloating over his death, and they're happy for him to die and all that. That's crazy. But what's also crazy is the worship of him, right? He's just a man like you are a man or you're a woman. He's a human being. We don't need to worship him. And those people who really know him like that or were really cool with him like that, they're going to celebrate him, and as they should. That's their right. But I don't agree with the pulling down, the excitement of a man being pulled down. That's not cool. Lemonade said, I was there when it happened. I'm sorry about that, Lemonade. If that's true, that you were there when it happened, I apologize that you had to go through that. Not that I apologize, but I feel sorry that you witnessed it, if that's true. Um, but yeah, I believe that Charlie was sacrificed. I believe that if he didn't know that, and I think he might have knew. I think that he might have knew that in his possible contractual agreement, not necessarily on paper, but through verbiage with whatever groups or people he's aligned with, that that he might have to give his life, you know? And I think that he's being immortalized like a Martin Luther King or a Malcolm X, but I just don't find um, I don't find an attachment. Although he's being immortalized like a Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, I don't find the attachment to his goal and purpose of what he was doing, right? He was just a debater. I think that was his thing. He loved to debate people. Um, and, he wasn't like revolutionary to me. And I watched a lot of his film, like I watched a lot of his commentary. There was like no necessarily, there wasn't really a like revolutionary, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were revolutionary, and they were immortalized in history because they were fighting for civil rights. I mean, black people, not only did they come out of slavery, they came out of Jim Crow, they were being oppressed, continuously oppressed. But, Charlie Kirk doesn't come from that type of background. He comes from a background where he's standing up for conservative beliefs, right? And obviously, the people on the left who are liberals, they were standing up for their liberal beliefs, as we do in America. This is what we do in America. But to immortalize somebody the way he's being immortalized, I don't really understand it. And I think that it's worship, right? We're worshiping this false idol. And my example out of the Bible would be that for those who are scripture readers, it would be that remember when Lucifer was trying to capture Moses, if it wasn't Moses, who was it? It was either Abraham or Moses. Correct me if I'm wrong. But there was a battle over the body of either Moses or Abraham. I can't remember, but somebody correct me. I'm having a fog, forgive me. But there was a fight between the archangel Michael and Lucifer. And Lucifer wanted to take his body so that he could immortalize it. He wanted people to worship um, the character, Moses or Abraham. Did somebody put it in the chat? The Nothing Killer, I agree with you on that. Charlie Kirk was a man who stood for freedom of speech. I agree with you on that for sure. Thank you, Stuff. Chodas Stuff. Thank you for Moses. Thank you for the correction. I appreciate that because I was having a fog. And so, um, the question really is why was the devil trying to get Moses' body? Because he wanted to immortalize it. He wanted it to um, he wanted to make a martyr out of Moses so that people would worship him as a false idol, right? Remember the first commandment, which Lucifer, the devil, is always trying to get us to break, right? Thou shalt have no other God, idol, before the Most High God, the Elohim, the Jehovah, whatever you would like to call him in his many of names that he has. And so, the Lord sent the archangel Michael to say, "Nah, stop the devil, because I know what he about to try to do." And it also makes me ponder, was Christ done in the same faction? Like, because Lucifer was there, and was he trying to do that with Christ? Was he trying to get us to worship Christ and immortalize Christ and not God? Because remember when Jesus was in the desert, the devil tried to tempt him. And Jesus' response to the devil was, "Thou shalt have no other gods before the Most High God, and thou shalt only worship the Most High God." But I say all that to say that's the thing that I got from it out of scripture in reference to what's going on in the media and how media is treating Mr. Charlie Kirk. But all due respect to his family and all due respect and, rest in peace to Charlie Kirk. Like I said, I'm not a follower of his in the sense of I didn't keep up with his work. I didn't really know who he was when it happened. And I had to catch up. I had to do my studying about it. So it took me time to talk about the topic because I wasn't just going to just jump out there and talk about this particular topic. And I know there's a lot of hate and there's a lot of emotional, there's a lot of hate and there's a lot of emotions going around this gentleman, so I don't know who this person is. Uh-oh. Hold on. Hold on, everybody. Give me 1 second. Oh, God. Let's put this person in timeout. Bloop. Yeah, sorry about that. Some of these trolls, I had to get them in timeout. God is great. That's right. Pumzil Molly. I don't like what you said right there, though. But God is great. But yes, I just wanted to say that we should only worship the Most High God. And when it comes to human beings, let the family celebrate and let us respect, right? Let's be respectful. I think that we should just be respectful for anybody who passes away. But I do personally believe that he was a sacrifice. I think that he was a part of a group or organization that, again, like my elder said, I don't think he knew how deep he was into some of these groups or a group that he may have been a part of, right? Either. And I had to look him up, and he's part of this whole like super alt-right group, and uh, these like frog gentlemen. I forgot what they're called. These frog gentlemen. Pepe. They use this guy, this frog Pepe, as their like icon or their profile pic, if you will. Like their Pepe is like their. I'm lost for words. I got a little fog tonight. But Pepe is like their mascot, if you will. And I forget the name of the. I have it on my laptop, but I think that that group is very serious about the Nick, the people who follow Nick Fuentes and the people who are MAGA or super alt right, whatever. I just think that they're very serious about their ideologies, and I think that they're very serious about their movement and the steps that they're taking to accomplish things. I think they're very serious about it. And there's talk online that he was too open about the viewpoints of the alt right, right? Like some of that stuff he was saying really wasn't supposed to be said out loud, if that makes sense. Like a lot of the stuff he was saying was supposed to be more covert, right? They don't want people to really know like how they truly feel and how they truly think, right? And because he's a great debater, and because he's a person who believes in freedom of speech, which I do, but you have to remember that freedom of speech, even though they say it's free, it's not free, right? Nothing is free in this world per se. And you have to be very powerful and have lots of money to really, really have free speech. Or you have to be allowed by the powers that be to say some of the things that you say, right? Otherwise, you're going to get yourself into major trouble. You know what I mean? And I'm speaking about myself as well. um, because some of the things we say, not only are they very hurtful to maybe an opposing side, but when you get to exposing groups, organizations, or individual people, especially those that have lots of money or that are in positions of power, of control, you rocking the boat. And when you rock that boat, and again, I think that Charlie was rocking the boat. But when you rock that boat, you put yourself in a position of harm. Now, let's go back to Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I apologize for not paying attention to the chat right away. I apologize for that. I kind of wanted to get my thoughts out. But her Des Cortez says he reminds me of Norman Lincoln Rockwell, head of the American Nazi Party. Ooh, shot by another Nazi, an ex-editor of Stormtrooper in 1967 from a rooftop. And to your point, and thank you for your comment, to your point, you kind of agree with me because I think that, the Nazi Party had a belief system, but they didn't want everything that they believed to be spoken about out loudly. And I think that Charlie Kirk may have went too far in his talking about his beliefs and ideologies. Now, one thing I can say I did not like from Charlie Kirk is um, he was anti-Islamic. You know what I mean? He was very anti-Islamic. I'm not sure if he was anti-Jewish. I think he did over some of the commentary I seen over some of his debates. I think I did hear him say something about Jews. But leave Jews and Islamic people alone. Again, the elders or wise people will always tell you there's three things you don't talk about. And everybody always has a different third thing. But the two main things you definitely don't talk about with people, or you be very careful about talking about it, is politics and religion. Those two things people will kill over. Politics and religion. And, what I like to say to all people is, not only free Palestine, but free Israel and free everything that is oppressed. That's my viewpoint. Free everything that's oppressed. Um, Des Cortez says, yes, this guy and Norman Lincoln Rockwell said many of the same extreme things. Exactly. And you have to remember, unless and he may have been funded by certain people, but you're talking about there are billionaires and possibly trillionaires. They just don't tell you that there's trillionaires, but there's people out there with real power and money that don't like what you're talking about, including myself, right? Including myself. So you got to be very careful about how you move. Now, if I could go back to what I was saying about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, they were killed, as we all know. Why were they killed? Because of their belief system and the things that they were saying. And wholeheartedly, from my personal perspective and belief, I'm with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, about what they were saying in that time period and era, right? Because every era and time period is different in advocation for whatever is going on in that time period or era, right? But in their time period or era, they were fighting for black folk. They were fighting for their community. They were fighting for civil rights. They were fighting for the right to vote. They were fighting for prison reform. They were fighting for, and the list goes on and on and on, right? I don't want to sit here and bore you. People know about Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. And they were using freedom of speech the same way that Charlie Kirk is to corral or to conglomerate support, not only from their community, but from the diaspora of communities across the globe. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X's name rang bells across the globe, but they were killed. And first, let's talk about Martin Luther King, who now we're finding out that he may have been a Mason, he may have been cheating on his wife, and such, all these things. Who knows? But we're finding out that things about people now in the future. Now we're finding out things about them because they're just human beings who have the testicular fortitude, that have the audacity to stand up, right? But Martin Luther King was killed by what we're finding out is our government and possibly other groups, maybe within his own, within the black community and also in the white community and also in the community of power. When I say community of power, I mean people with power that are in positions of power, but really people who have money. and want to continue a narrative or continue a state of being for the mass population. Now let's go to Malcolm X. Now, Malcolm X was a little different than Martin Luther King. See, Martin Luther King would, he predominantly was around black folk, but he would mix up with white folks and stuff like that too, right? Because the point of him speaking out for human rights, civil rights for black folks, was that you need more support than just from the black community. And so he had the imagery of more, remember, I have a dream that, little black girls and little white boys and, whatever ever else he said in the I have a dream speech. I don't have it memorized. But he had a dream that he seen all diasporas, all nations come together. Okay, so that means that when he's speaking and he goes to talk to people, he's going to speak to all people, although he's standing up for black folk. Now back to Malcolm X. Malcolm X was killed by his own people. Not even just black folk, he was killed by his own I'm gonna admit what I wanted to say, because although it's public information and people know the conspiracy about Malcolm X, we'll just say that the group that he was a part of, the organization he was a part of, allegedly had something to do with his death. But even still, there's more controversy about it, because although he was killed by his own people, there's talk that, the alphabet people, the lettered organizations, right? We know who those are, the CIA, the FBI, the et cetera, that they put his organization up to it. Like, Malcolm's gotta go. We need y'all to take care of that business. Now, why would they need his own people to kill him? Well, because Malcolm didn't hang around white folks. He wasn't hanging around white folks. He wasn't really hanging around Latino people. He was around black folks 24/7. So it made sense to have your own brother and or your own sister to set you up for death. We've seen this in Jesus' story as well, where his own disciples set him up. This is a thing that happens throughout history. Caesar, even Caesar, Julius Caesar, his own people had him set up, right? So that's how power works. Power will, when they want to get rid of you anyways, power will have you set up by your own people to have you taken out. Hold on, everybody. Xavier, I'm not going to block you, brother, because you're allowed to be in here. But I need you to kind of cut it out, as I might have to put you back in timeout. But no offense to you, Xavier. I'm not going to block you. I'm just going to put you in timeout. But heard Des Cartes says, but I can't remember hearing Martin Luther King speak hatefully of other people. That's absolutely correct. He did call out some for their cruelty. That's absolutely correct. Kingdom Lamb, people call Charlie a racist for being against DEI, but Martin Luther King was literally against DEI too. Kingdom Lamb, you present a good point. Heard Descartes says Charlie Kirk co-founded the propaganda machine around 2012. He promptly attracted Republican big money donors. And see, that's what I'm saying. Like, Pulpin the thirds, it sounds like excuses to me. But that's what I'm saying. Like, we don't really know who Mr. Kirk was attached to. We're not, we don't know who he was really attached to. And just look at this, like Trump flew him out in Air Force Two. We put the flag at half staff for him. The military saluted him. Like, when in history have we seen that in the United States outside of you being an American official, meaning like a president or a senator or something like that, right? Somebody in the military. Like, we've never seen that before for somebody who just was a freedom of speech person. Like, for somebody who just stood up for whatever he believed in, right? We've never seen that before. So that should tell you something. It should like really click in your brain, like, okay, this is a little weird. What's going on? Because they're immortalizing him. You know, he may have made an agreement where, they said, we're going to make you live for infamy. You're going to live forever. But he may have not knew how living forever was going to mean that, yeah, you got to give your life, or we're going to take your life, but we're going to immortalize you. We're going to put you up on the pedestal. People are going to remember your name in history. But really, in actuality, folks, we're all human beings. Like, yes, we remember Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, but we also forget them too. Because life goes on. Life goes on, and people move on. And the pharaohs, we remember the pharaohs, but we also forget them too. And life goes on. However, the only person that we still remember, the only person / deity that we still remember, the only person that really lives forever is Jesus. Jesus lives forever and has lived through every era. And people remember him every day, every second on the hour. As we move through life, we remember Jesus. We call on Jesus. Anyways, family, I just wanted to quickly, briefly speak about Charlie Kirk. I know it's a hot item, and obviously, I didn't just jump out there and try to catch the algorithm for views. I really wanted to take my time to understand who Mr. Kirk was and, give him his proper respect as far as being a great debater, a person who believed in freedom of speech and actively used his freedom of speech to stand up for whatever it is that he believed in. Do I believe everything that Mr. Kirk believed in? No. But is there some things that I could find that he said that I say, well, that makes sense? Yes. But again, I think that the demoralization of this gentleman is wrong, and I think it's wrong to want to take people out for their freedom of speech because, even if it's for or against Charlie Kirk. JD Vance was like, anybody who says anything negative about Charlie Kirk, call their job. I was like, JD, you're our vice president. Relax, bro. I know that was your friend, but Jesus, you don't need to call people's jobs over stuff like that. People are going to be people. You know what I mean? People are going to be people. And with the internet and the algorithms and freedom of speech, which is a great thing, by the way, and understand that freedom of speech is not free, because we're a mighty militant power in the world, America. And without that militant power, we wouldn't just be able to say what we want. And really, for real, we better be careful, because as Descartes said, we better be very careful, because the way things are looking, that Nazi movement could return in a different form. Anyways, let me get back to the chat and see what you guys got to say. Herdis Cartes says, yes, the black community has historically marginalized, criminalized, obstructed from voting and political involvement, and lacking in education opportunity, and therefore kept collectively in poverty. Shout out to Hair Descartes. I appreciate you, dear. Um, Pulpin the Third sounds like excuses to me. We all have problems, but I guess you're the bigger victim. As men, you're supposed to get over that. I'm not sure what you're describing, but I mean, I can understand where you're coming from, Pulpin. I definitely can understand where you're coming from. But I'm not necessarily saying I agree with you, but I do understand where you're coming from. Hurt Descartes says, once he got his gig going, Kirk had to keep pushing more and more outrageous statements against women and anyone who didn't look like his audience, who prejudices he was validating. You're absolutely correct, but at some point there has to be self-control, and at some point there has to be emotional intelligence, right? Because we all are allowed to say what we want to say. Now, again, growing up, we all heard the term, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. And that's absolutely incorrect. Words hurt enough to where you want to hurt somebody. Let's just be honest. And a lot of the things Mr. Kirk was saying, I could understand how people could find it offensive. Um, but really, for real, I think that the only thing I really didn't like I said before, was him talking. I didn't like what he was saying about Islam. Like, just leave my brothers and sisters alone in Islam. For the most part, the 90%, really, let's take it up 5 more percent. 95% of people in the Islamic community are very, very peaceful people. And they tend to mind their business for the most part. I'm not saying all of them mind their business. Some of them are gossipers. But again, I hung around them for quite a bit of time. A lot of them tend to mind their business, and their main concern is to worship Allah, the merciful, right? So let's just leave them alone, and let's also leave Jewish people alone, right? I don't remember what he said exactly about Jewish folks, but I think he was saying something negative about Jewish people too. And let's leave Jewish people alone. Let's leave them out of this. Now, you want to talk American politics, but leave these other countries and their belief systems alone. I mean, it has nothing to do with us. America was founded on freedom of not only speech, but freedom of religion. So he didn't need to. I don't like that part about Mr. Kirk. That's one of the things I didn't like what he was talking about. Um, I didn't really care. It didn't bother me about the whole transgender thing he was saying and all that. I mean, let people do what they want. That's between them and God. As long as they're not hurting children or corralling or coercing children into their lifestyle, let people do what they want. That's between them and God. Now, my personal belief is we shouldn't be funding, the government is not supposed to be funding your transitional changes, right? If you want to transitionally change, I think that you should fund your own transitional changes. The government shouldn't be doing that. That's not the government's job, right? We got to go back to our Constitution. Remember, the government isn't supposed to have that much power. They're not supposed to have that much power. Anyways, Mike Soverted, what if you find out Jesus does not exist in the end? I think I would be a little bit sad if I found out Jesus didn't exist in the end, but I mean, it wouldn't hurt me too bad. But I do believe in Jesus, though. I do believe that he was real. Her Descartes says we do find that empathy doesn't exist in the makeup of many people. Exactly. I agree with you. I'm right there with you. Jamie Marr, how you doing? She says, she or he says, Jamie could be a boy or girl. So glad I don't have to hear this traitor anymore. Oh God. That's not nice, Jamie. That's not nice. Here, Descartes says the vice president is Evie. Yeah. Encouraging snitches, encouraging snitches maliciously. Uh, Wilma Deckfit says he looked like Beavis and Butthead. Now that I can't disagree with. He does have a Beavis and Butthead look. Mr. Dude 2000, God bless Charlie Kirk. So I'm with you on that one. God bless and rest in peace. Determined, don't disagree. MLK Kirk is nowhere near their level. Uh, don't disgrace MLK Kirk is nowhere near their level. You're funny. I like that. That was funny. Words can incite mobs and riots and domestic terrorists, says her Descartes. I mean, this is what I'm trying to say. We grew up with a lot of false teachings from our parents and grandparents and their parents. You know, we all grew up with that saying, sticks and stones may hurt you, but words can never hurt me. Yes, they do. And a lot of the times, that's why you're seeing a lot of these mass murders and school shootings and just all the stuff that you're seeing that's negative. A lot of it comes from people's words first. And we sit here and say to ourselves, oh, words can't hurt us. That's false. Words hurt. But with emotional intelligence, see, when you gain your emotional intelligence, when you go to therapy and you work on yourself, words have lesser effect on you because you have what? Knowledge of self. And you know who you are as a person. G Cloud Walker says, what has he done for people? I mean, I don't know what he's done. I know he has a foundation and that it has, I don't know, it has almost $10 million, but I don't know what he's actually done for people because I didn't look into him that much. Again, I didn't know who Charlie Kirk was, and I had to do a lot of research on him to kind of like navigate what was going on in the first place. Like, why would somebody want to shoot him, right? I didn't know. I never heard of his name before then. But yeah, respectfully, respectfully to him. Oh, Callie Wana said, you're a good dude, man. Glad to have found your channel. I appreciate that, sir. And thank you for the compliment. Thank you. Her Descartes says, I agree with determined. Yeah, I mean, you all said beautiful things. I mean, some of y'all were just trolling, but a lot of y'all said really good things, and I agree with you for the most part. But what I want to encourage people to do is really take a step back from the worship of a man. We respect him and we celebrate him, but worshiping is what's going on right now. And as a child of God, I have to remind you that the number one commandment is thou shalt worship no other God before the Most High God. So we really need to check ourselves before we wreck ourselves. You better check yourself before you wreck yourself, as they used to say. And I think that not only do I need to take that advice, but I think that Charlie Kirk would have did good if he would have checked himself, right? Sometimes we gain this fan base and the money and the glory, right? The Glory is not yours, it's God's. But we get this glory, and then next thing you know, we forget that we're human. Anyways, family, I gotta get up and go to work. I gotta go to school tomorrow. Um, I just wanted to say that I've been dedicated to school and learning and um, building myself up to fight for the American people and all their different opinions about the world and America and different subject matters, right? I plan on fighting for you and standing up for you in the future. I plan on being a politician that's never heard of, that you've never heard of, that you know, right? I plan on being this politician that you know, that you guys know me. Unlike a Charlie Kirk, though, but that I try to be sensitive to people's states of mind. We should be sensitive to people's states of mind. And I look to do justice and good for the American people. That goes for number one, black folks. Number two, Spanish folks. Number three, the diaspora of African folks and Caribbean folks that live in America. The diaspora of Islamic people that live in America. The diaspora of Jewish people that live in America. The diasporas of all different sects, cults, religions, and everything that's good about America, including white folks who have, they're very, um, white folks are forefathers of this country. They are. When I do talk to some of the older white elders that I have, they have a lot of history, rich history, um, in founding this country. Unfortunately, a lot of the old history is very negative, speaking upon like slavery and some of the wars, right? But to the good white folks in America, which there's a lot of good white folks in America, when I say that, when I run for politics, I hope that all the nations vote for me because just like Calawana said, I am a really good dude. I'm every the elder man, anyways. Pause, no homo on that. Um, and that doesn't make me homophobic. I'm just saying that because it made sense. But I'm everybody's son. Every elder woman, every elder man, I'm everybody's son. When you talk to the elders and the elders talk to you about me, they're going to be like, that's my son. I'm everybody's brother. I am everybody's family member. I'm your cousin, okay? I'm your relative. And I look to do honorably by not only number one, by the Most High God, by Jesus and everything that he stood for, but by the American people and what they want. To just live by our Constitution, to just have our freedom of speech, have our freedom of religion, have our freedom to pick what gender we want to be, right? I laugh, but if that's what people want to do, that's none of your business. I think that's where Charlie Kirk went wrong too, trying to debate people about whether you're a male or female. Listen, we all know physically that there's a male and there is a female. We know that. People are not dumb. But what you want to identify as long as you're not violating anybody else's rights, specifically children, specifically children. But as long as you're not violating anybody else's rights, that's between you and God. Your orientation is between you and God. And again, that's religion and things like that. You don't talk about those things. You don't really need to debate about them. Conversate about them to find more information about how people think about things. Yeah, do that. But to debate about them like you're wrong and you're wrong, uh, no. We want to stay out of that box. And not only do we want to stay out of that box, there's more important things to worry about, like our 37, almost $40 trillion in debt that America has across the globe. But not only that, we should be there's we have too much things in America. We should homelessness, the economy, debate about those things. The certain laws that are being enacted, you know, debate about those things. We have more important things to debate about versus somebody's religion or their orientation of gender. And the American people are going to see that in the future. They're going to see that. Who cares? We got really serious issues that we need to handle as a country. Anyways, folks, I appreciate your likes. I appreciate your viewership. Um, I apologize for my being absentee. I'm really studying right now, and like I said, I'm working to build the credentials to be a leader in our country, a balanced leader in our country, one that won't get assassinated, and one that believes in justice and equality. Um, so I'm in school studying, as you all know. But yeah, I appreciate your viewership. I appreciate your likes. I appreciate everybody who subscribed. If you did subscribe, you'll never hear me say like and subscribe. That's just not my thing. Do what you feel is right for you. Do what you feel is right and necessary for you. Anyways, family, thank you. Lifestyle, child of God. Peace.